Hi everyone, welcome to episode 96 of Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel and I can be found pretty much everywhere as well for pearls. It was 20 degrees in the car this morning when I was driving James to school, and Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, and it now is like 24, 25 and it's noon here, just 12:30. So it's definitely going to be a hot day. And I had grand plans of having a shower after the gym. I had boot camp this morning and I was gonna get all changed, and the shirt that I wanted to wear today is in the wash. I didn't get to a shower because I needed groceries. We were away this weekend. Hi Erica. And just everything fell apart. So you know those days, you guys know. We're going to jump right into the show because I had to regenerate those links and everything for everyone, so I'm sorry about that. Hopefully you've joined us now and you've re-clicked on the Patreon. If you're coming from Patreon via that way instead of the Slack channel, I've reposted the post, so hopefully I edited it, so hopefully you guys are able to get in there. Let me just put one comment in the post so that people know. All right. So how are you guys? I hope you're doing well. 16 Celsius in Scotland. Oh, that's gorgeous. You know what, for me, ideal, I love it when it's like between 14 and 20, because then you can wear your woolens in the morning and then you can strip down as the day goes on. And you don't have to wear a jacket, and I always feel like I get more use out of my stuff. All right, we have a giveaway going on in the group right now in the Ravelry thread. It is linked in the show notes at wellforpearls.com or at patreon.com/wellforpearls. Excuse me, sorry. We have a warm bat and a cool bat that we're giving away. Let me just fold this one out, or re-roll it. This is the cool bat. This is the warm bat. I had asked you to pop into the Ravelry thread for the May episode thread, and I will draw the winners next show. So that's the first show in June. Let me know if you want the warm one or the cool one. It was interesting, a lot of people in the Ravelry group so far have been saying that they don't mind whichever one. But let me know, cool or warm, or either. Hi Sharon. And if you, and what your favorite spinning tool is. So a lot of people are going in, there's drum carders, hand cards, wool combs. Some people have said their spinner's control card, which I thought was really interesting. Because I actually didn't even think of that when I was thinking of tools, which is so weird, so silly, because that's totally one of the tools I use the most. One of the other tools that I use the most is a measuring tape. You may have seen one of the old, it's one of the not so recent teaching contents where I was spinning singles and I was using a length of string to figure out how long to spin for before I needed to funnel it onto the wheel to keep my wraps per inch really consistent. And I always use a measuring tape for that. So on my basket here, if you can see this, hopefully you can see in the video, this tab here that I have, I actually keep this attached to it. So this is one of my extra long. It's 120 centimeters instead of just a 60 or 160 inches. Anyways, it's 120 inches, I think. It's one of these extra long ones. And it has the chain on it. I don't know what these are called. Anyways, I actually normally keep it attached to that. So I actually undo it and I keep it on here. Of course, now I can't do it. It's being finicky. Anyways, the kids took it off last night because normally it would be on there. Because I use this all the time, and because this big basket back here, because it's a little bit too big to be portable, my other one I use more for portability, and I take it to the guild, and if I'm meeting up with friends that are knitters or spinners, then I take my other basket. This one stays in the house, and I keep my measuring tape attached to it so that it's always there. But the kids have been taking it off, and so I hid it, but I need to put it on the other side of the basket so they don't see it. Anyways, total sidetrack. So let us know what your favorite spinning tools are, and pop into the Ravelry group and you'll be entered to win one of those bats. I wanted to mention really quickly for those who, just in case I forget in future episodes, I always get a question via private message in Ravelry. Sometimes I get them on the Slack channel. I always get a question about shipping. People will often ask me if I am willing to ship internationally. So I'm in Canada. Some people may not realize that I'm not actually in the US, because I know a lot of population, there's a huge population in the US and a lot of podcasters are in the US. I'm in Canada. I ship around the world. I've sent things to Slovakia. I've sent things to Greece. I've sent things to the US, all over the US. I've sent things to South America. I'll ship anywhere. Rural Ontario, which is more expensive than you think it is. It's like $20 or $25 to ship to rural Ontario, because I'm in British Columbia. So anyways, I'll ship around the world. So if you are not in the Canada or the US and you feel like you can't enter, please just go ahead and throw your answer into the Ravelry thread. I will ship to you if your name comes up, regardless of where you are. You can be in Serbia for all I care. I will ship it to you. All right, so we have officially started our woolen spinning breed and color study. Katrina is our dyer in residence who has been doing this for us. So this is our third time with Katrina. This is our fourth woolen spinning breed and color study, which I'm really excited about. So we generated, some of you will remember, we generated a whole bunch of photos in the Ravelry group. There was 3 or 4 pages of photos. We had asked you for a prompt around posting photos that were inspiring around spring. So Katrina looked at the photos and she really was inspired by specific colors in different photos. So there was like, you know, a pink in one photo and a gorgeous green in another photo and a gorgeous yellow in another photo. And she just kind of put all those colors together and she kept looking at it and she kept texting me and what should I do? And do you think this would be okay? And there isn't a specific photo. I took a lot of inspiration from a whole bunch of photos. I thought it was just gorgeous what she came up with. So there's 2 options. There's a link on Patreon. There's a link on my blog on wellforpearls.com. This is ongoing until the end of September of 2018 this year. So we usually do our breed and color studies for 6 months and then we move on to a new color study. So the spring breed and color study is always a carded fiber. And the fall into winter, so October into the end of March, is usually a combed top breed and color study. So last time we did Finn. Does anybody remember what we did before that? What was our one before that? It was Gotland and BFL, so they were the long wools, and we did a compare and contrast. Yeah, so this time around we decided to go back to the finer wools. So we did Finn last time, and now we're kind of doing the opposite. We're kind of going more back towards the fine wools, and this time we're doing 100% Targhee. So this is not superwash Targhee. This is 100% Targhee. You can buy this as a kit, or you can buy this as the nest. You can get 100 grams, you can get 50 grams, or you can get the 100 gram kit. You don't have to buy the kit or the fiber to participate if you have your own Targhee in your stash. Please, if you're going to participate, please use 100% Targhee. Don't use superwash Targhee. It's a different fiber. It spins very differently. And for our reflections, we're looking at the breed and we want to know a little bit more about how it spins and all that kind of stuff. We don't want to work with a fiber. Like if we were doing superwash Targhee, we would work with superwash Targhee. So just sort of keep that in the back of your mind, because you don't have to buy fiber to participate. Everybody is invited, and I hope that you'll join along. So all the links will be in the show notes for all of this. And this is one of the battling sets, and actually it's hard to see because of the reflection, so I'll just tip it up here. This is one of the battling sets that she made. This is the 100 grams. And then I'm also, she doesn't know this yet. I don't know if she's watching today. I don't think so. Can't see her in the chat channel. I'm also going to have, I'm going to ask her to make me a 100 gram kit. So I'll have the compare and contrast to the two as we spin over the next 3 months. So I hope that you're participating. I see a couple of people in the Ravelry, in the chat channel right now, in the pop-up chat for YouTube. There's Rebecca's in there and Becca is in there. I know you guys have already bought your fiber, and yeah. So if you're participating, hop into the Ravelry group. Let us know how you're planning on spinning this, and I will be talking about more on how I will be spinning it over the next couple of months. So I hope you're as excited as I am. There's this one in here. I'm going to hold it up here. There's this one here that's pink and orange and brown, and it's all carded together. I would love to see a battling set of just these three. I'm going to take a picture of it, and I'm going to send it to Katrina and be like, can you make a battling set of just these ones? Because I just love that particular one. I haven't looked at the other ones as closely, but this one up here, I just love it. So lots of ideas about how I'm going to spin this, and I will keep you posted, and we'll be chatting more about that. Okay, so on today's show, as things start falling out of my basket, on today's show, I have some project planning. I have 2 new cast-ons, actually 3 new cast-ons, but one is going to get ripped out. So today is actually going to be a very knitting heavy show. It's all hand-spun knitting, because of course on this show we only talk about hand-spun and spinning. I do sometimes talk about my sweater knits and stuff. I'll talk about Wolf River if we have time. It's a commercial yarn that I'm using for it, so I usually talk about hand-spun knitting. But today I do have a lot of knitting, and I also finished one thing, and I'll show it to you quickly. Or not, I can't find it. I finished a bobbin. I haven't finished a bobbin in forever. I should really organize in here, hey? It's getting a bit frustrating that I can't find anything. Oh, here it is. So I'll just really quickly talk about this. This was my Superwash BFL hackled with vegan yarn. So that was Superwash BFL from Crafty Jacks from Katrina in her Harvest colorway. And then I hackled it with Vegan Yarns microfiber fiber. So it's like a vegan cashmere, she calls it. When was Heidi on the show for Woolen Spinning Radio? So May's show, so it was just released a couple of weeks ago. Heidi was interviewed on Woolen Spinning Radio. So Woolen Spinning Radio is the audio podcast that goes with this podcast that is for patrons, and it's a private RSS feed that everybody gets when you're a patron of the show. And I interviewed her in May. It's the second time that she's been on the show. And she actually said she has discontinued the vegan cashmere because of environmental concerns. So she said, yes, it's vegan. However, for her, the environmental sustainability is becoming more and more of a concern for her, and so she's actually discontinued it. But I did get one of her last braids of it, and it was this crazy yellow color, and the Harvest colorway that Katrina has went with it perfectly. So I hackled them together, and that was the results. So I'm just letting it rest because it's very, very high twist, because the vegan cashmere needed a ton of twist to hold it together. And then I'm going to chain ply this. So hopefully that yarn will be done soon, and I'll be able to show it to you, because I just need a chance to like sit down and actually spend the time to ply it. The other thing I was thinking about was actually winding it off and doing a traditional 3-ply. My weaving, my bobbin winder is right here. You can't see it, it's slightly out of the frame, but I'm actually thinking I might do 3 bobbins and wind them off and do a traditional 3-ply. I'm kind of torn. I probably actually need to add more twist to these singles, so I was thinking about putting it back through my wheel and adding more twist and then letting them rest for another week or so. So anyhow, lots of thoughts, but this will be done soon, and I'm excited to have a project done, so that'll be really nice. So I've been planning a project. Let me have a sip of coffee. My coffee's always super hot when I record the show. So today I got smart. I put 2 ice cubes in it. And now I can actually like drink it and enjoy it while I'm recording, and my throat won't go dry. So I on Friday, I guess it was, or Thursday, we were away over the weekend. We went camping in the interior of British Columbia. And I pulled out all my handspun yarn because I have a big clear tote of it. And then I have a couple of big glass vases from IKEA that are full of yarn as well. And they sit on our mantle in the family room. And that rotates in and out like what's in there. And as I finish yarns, some of those yarns get stored and then new yarns get put on. Anyways, I have been putting yarns aside and sort of thinking about all these different projects that I want to do. And one of the projects, so somebody posted, and so she posted in the Ravelry group, and I can't remember her name. I'm really, really sorry because I know exactly who you are, but it'll take too long for me to look up who it is. But she had posted this finished shift cowl, and it's by Andrea Maury, I think is her name, and she's the designer behind and Andrea Maury, the designer behind Drea Renee Knits. You guys will know her as soon as you see her. Anyways, she designed this, and somebody in the Ravelry group posted her handspun finished version, and I took the photo that she posted in the Ravelry group, and I actually also posted it in the Slack channel and was like, have you guys seen this cowl? And I had seen it in passing, but I hadn't really thought about it in relation to handspun. But the original that's the original like modeled one that was finished, was done in Spin Cycle yarns. And if anybody is familiar with Spin Cycle yarns, they have a very handspun look to them because they're mill spun. They're meant to look that way. So they have all the marling in them, and they have the sort of slightly variegated kind of look, and they're very handspun looking, and that's how they're supposed to look. Like they were originally handspun until they just couldn't keep up with demand, and now they hand dye the fiber, and then it's mill spun. And I've met the two owners of Spin Cycle Yarns, and I can't remember, it's Rachel and somebody. Anyways, they're lovely. They're just awesome people. And so when I saw this cowl, I started hunting through my stash. And honest to goodness, I took like, you guys would laugh, I took like 15 or 20 photos of all the different combinations of yarn that I could possibly do, because I have all this yarn. So so these are all of the combinations of what I thought maybe would work, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And I just couldn't figure out, like, nothing was really working. And so I started thinking maybe I just need to, it's the warm, it wasn't Greta. Was it Greta? Was her name Greta? The girl who posted her cowl? Was her name Greta? I feel like that's right. The warm Stro. I don't know how you say your Ravelry name. I'll put it right here so that you guys can look at her project, because it's out of the most gorgeous handspun, and the colors work perfectly. Anyways, I decided that I had to like think outside the box, because nothing I was putting together was working. They were either too analogous, so they were all from one side of the color wheel, and it was too similar, or they were too crazy, so it was like, you know, like purples and pinks, very like jewel toned with like gray, and it just, nothing really worked. And so I looked back at what Greta had done, and she had put together 3 very different yarns that you wouldn't think would work, but the commonality was that they each had one color that tied all 3 yarns together. So I was like, okay, if that's what might work, I'm just gonna put everything away and start pulling it out again and look at all of the yarns with new eyes. So eventually I came upon this combination, and it kind of maybe looks a bit all over the place, and actually I think it works better this way. My only concern is that I have a lot more yardage of each of these yarns than is called for in the cowl. And so each of these is approximately 280, 325 yards. And these are all sort of a heavy fingering. They're not quite sport. So the pattern calls for 3.75 millimeter needles, I think. And I think what I'm going to do is knit it on 3mm or even 3.25mm needles, just to cinch down the gauge a bit, and I'll use up more yardage. So this yarn in the middle is actually spun right round. No. Is it spun right round? Oh shoot. I'm just drawing, you know what? I am actually a bit, I'm not tired today, but I'm like a bit out of it. We were in the sun. You guys can kind of probably tell I've got a lot of color. We were in we were up in Manning Park. So for those who kind of know this part of the world, you'll know where that is. And it rained all day Saturday, which was fine because Mike and I just read and we played some board games with the kids on the Round. So this is on the Round. She's located, I think, in New York State, and this is a BFL. And this is Sweet Georgia. It was a colorway from October of 2016 Fiber Club. It's called Equinox, and it's a 80/20 merino Tussa silk, and it's 100% merino. It's not superwash. And then this is also Sweet Georgia. This is superwash merino nylon, an 85/15 blend, and this is March of 2016's Fiber Club, and it's Panorama. So the commonality between these three yarns is that they all have this sort of green kind of limey color in it. So all of them have that color, and these two work together. I don't like red and green together personally, but they work together because they're from the same dyer, so they're the same colors. And then this is kind of my neutral, and so that is actually what I've come up with. This yarn I've been saving and saving and saving and saving. I think I spun it back in, oh my goodness, it's like 2016 at least. Oh my goodness, you guys, I spun it in 2015, in June of 2015. So that was about a year after I'd come back to spinning, because I came back to spinning in June of 2014. I can't believe it's 2015. Anyways, so I've been hoarding this yarn here because it's one of my absolute most favorite yarns that I've ever spun. And I was going to put it in a shawl with striped cream. I have some Coriadel that I had been combing, and I've been slowly spinning it and whatnot. And I've been saving it and saving it and saving it. But I just love it in this combination. And these two yarns are very special to me because they're some of the Sweet Georgia Fiber Club, and I spun them for the blog, and I've been kind of saving them as well. So I sort of felt like these three would work really well together. And next to my skin, it would mean that I could actually wear this one, because red is not my best color. I don't care what anybody says about redheads wearing red and that you think it's fine. It might very well be. It's just a color that I've always been told I can't wear, and it's not one of my favorite colors. But I thought because of the purple and the green in it, that I would be able to wear the three of them sort of next to my face. So I'm actually really excited about this. So I'm not going to cast it on just yet because I have to knit something for the book, and then I'm done with all of the book knitting that I need to do. And then I'll cast this on after. So it's going to kind of be my reward, but I thought I would share this with you before I wind all the cakes. But holy smokes, was it hard to find yarns that would work for that pattern. I thought it would be a piece of cake. I'd go into my stash, I'd find them, it would be no big deal. It took me like an hour. And granted, I was being interrupted every 5 minutes by Nora, but holy smokes. I started a new knit. This is just my own, it's just a vanilla shawl. I'm going to rip it out. This yarn was a combination spin that I did. I can't remember what episode I talked about it on, but I spun it back in, thank goodness for Ravelry, hey? I don't know what I would do without Ravelry. I refer to Ravelry so much for like I don't want to say for journals, but like it's kind of like a living, breathing journal, and I refer to it all the time. So I spun this in 2017. So any episode that I recorded between February and June of 2017 will have this yarn in it. And it's a combination spin of Nest Fiber Studios, created by LCB, and Hello Yarn. There were 3 different dyers in there and 4 different braids of fiber. And I this yarn, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. I like it. I think it's pretty. But everything that I've tried to knit up with it, I haven't liked. And so the other night I was sitting and having coffee with Mari and Jess, who you guys would know from the Slack channel, for those of you who are in there. And I just started knitting, and I just kind of wanted to see what would happen with the yarn as it knit up. Let me switch my cameras. I need Eve to be in there and telling me to switch my cameras, but she's not around today. It's okay. I'm not like overly in love with it. It obviously is striping quite a lot. This yarn is going to stripe because it's a combination spin. I know a lot of people have used these yarns that they've made to knit sweaters. I think I actually like the yarn better on the wrong side. And I don't have enough yardage to knit a sweater with this yarn, but I think there's probably something to be said for maybe doing a reverse stockinette shawl and switching the sides and having, yeah, just knitting it with a reverse stockinette. So I'm going to kind of play around with that, but I'm going to rip it out and I'm going to start it again and sort of see what I come up with, because I don't love what it's knitting up with. Like, the other thing I was thinking was actually putting it, striping it with some cream. So maybe putting a cream stripe in every so often. But it'll be a really cozy, comfy shawl. The yarn is super soft. It's a combination of Falkland. Can't remember what all the fibers are, and I didn't put them in my Ravelry page. I know there's BFL, Targi. It's a whole like spread of different fibers in the yarn, and I talked about that a lot on the show because it was actually hard to spin. But yeah, so I don't know. It's pretty. I'm sure once it gets to be a big, huge, massive shawl, the striping won't matter because your eye will just gloss over the whole thing, which I'll talk about in a minute because of another project that I'm working on. But for some reason, like, this just doesn't really, I'm not sure that I could get through 2 massive skeins of knitting with this, although I was quite enamored with the colors as I was knitting. I was really enjoying watching them change. But I was kind of playing around with it and see where I come to. The gauge that I'm knitting it at is really nice. It's creating a really, really lovely fabric, and these are 4mm needles. So and I think the yarn is probably a heavy sport light DK. I haven't actually done a wraps per inch on it. I guess I probably should. I just haven't done it yet, but yeah, it's okay. Looking at it now after not looking at it all weekend, I actually like it a bit better than I did. So maybe I need to throw in like a purl ridge or something, and that'll make it a bit more interesting. I don't know. Or maybe a garter, like a little garter section, and then go back to the stockinette. I'm not sure. So yeah. So Rebecca, that's an interesting comment, Rebecca. I was just reading what you wrote. Rebecca says, I'm always wanting to stripe with cream too. I wonder if you'll like it better when you get to the blue. Probably. I think that's a very, very good, interesting comment, because there's some pinks and grays and whatnot in here, and some blues and everything. And of course I love that gold color. But like the brown and the sort of the dirty green and stuff, like and the marling here of the 2 singles that were so contrasty, I really don't like that. Like, I know that that's not my taste. So yeah, I'm gonna have to see. I'll have to play around with it a little bit, but I'll definitely keep you guys posted. So anyways, on the weekend, we were it was raining quite a bit on Saturday, and Mike and I were having such a nice time, just like, you know, having quiet basically. And the kids obviously needed the break and needed the quiet, and it was so interesting because I was sitting there thinking about all these projects that I've kind of got on the go and that I'm working on, and I was really enjoying working on these new cast-ons, and thinking to myself, like, I need to spend more time knitting with my handspun because I haven't for so long. I don't know if you guys have noticed on the podcast, but I've been really not working on a lot of stuff knitting wise, and I definitely missed it, you know, spending that time casting on some new stuff and project planning. And I sort of lost my knitting mojo for a long time there, and I was just feeling like knitting was so slow. But I'm kind of getting over that. It's getting a bit better. So this project I cast on a whim last week. I have to do, like I mentioned, I have one more knit for the book, but I'm actually missing the yarn. Katrina, I need to get the yarn from Katrina, so I need to pop over to her house and pick it up. And so I decided to find something sort of to work on over the weekend, or at least get a really good start on, even if I don't get to work on it again until the summer when we go away. And I found this quite addictive. It's amazing how addictive this pattern ended up being. So this is actually the Sunwalker Shawl by Melanie Berg. And I cast it on as we pulled out of the driveway on the way to Manning. And it's less than 2 hours to get to Manning from our house. And you guys will remember this yarn. I'm not going to pull it out of the bag, but it's my home dyed fiber that was a whole bunch of, it was like a sock fiber. It was alpaca and merino and nylon and silk. And I had dyed it back in 2014 or 15, 2015. I think after I took that workshop at Maiwa, and I let it sit after that. And then remember back in January of this year, I started spinning it on my Ashford e-spinner. Anyways, I started knitting with it, and it's really turning out quite nicely. So you start by casting on at the one end, and you work your way across in a textured stitch, which is basically just moss stitch, but there's increases and whatnot and decreases that are worked in here. And my edge is a little bit uneven because of the hand spun, and I'm hoping that that'll just block out. But I actually made my way quite well. So you have to work this repeat. There's a number of rows that you need to work as a repeat to sort of set the shawl up before you start the lace. All of this lace that's down here. There's 3 charts, I think, that you've got to work your way through. And then you work a little bit more of the textured stitch, and then you do an I-cord bind off. So you have to work this, I think it's 25 or 24 times or something like that. And so I've been working like all the sections, and I actually, in just the weekend and just the driving, I worked it 12 times. Like, it was really fast. Granted, I'm getting more and more stitches now, and I still have to do another 12. But it's been quite fast. I was really surprised. So I'm knitting this on 3.75 millimeter needles. I'm working on my Addy Turbos, which I love. I love these needles. I know they're not for everyone, but they're my absolute most favorite needle. And I'm really, really enjoying this. And it's kind of funny because I'm getting these quite significant stripes in here. But this shawl has been in my queue for so long. And I kept taking it out of my queue and putting it back in my queue on Ravelry. And what I have 1,040 yards of this yarn. So I decided to search on Ravelry for patterns for 1,040 yards of yarn. Like I think it's like 900 to 1,100 yards of yarn or whatever. You can click that in the advanced search on Ravelry. And this was one of the first patterns that came up. I think it was like number 2 or 3. And I thought, you know, that pattern just keeps coming up and keeps coming up and keeps coming up. So I'm just going to do it. I'm going to cast it on and do it. And if I hate it, I'll just rip it out and find something else. Anyways, I think it's nice. From a distance, I was a bit concerned about all of the striping. But from a distance, it's actually okay. Like, it actually works up. Because you'll have the shawl sort of all looped around, and it'll be all drapey, and the overall feel of the shawl is sort of this pastel-y, yellowy, greeny blue kind of color. So I sort of thought, you know, it's just going to be really pretty. You're not going to see the stripes, and it gives it a little bit more interest, because actually the original pattern, it's tonal yarn that she uses for it. So let me just pull it up, because the original yarn that's used in it, I mean, granted it is, you know, a semi-solid, but it's pretty tonal. It's got gray in there. There's gray in there and black. It's not a fully just gold yellow yarn. It's got a lot of different colors in there. So I sort of thought I could probably get away with it. Like, look at in the lace section how much gray is in there with the gold. But like from a distance, and even because the quality from my camera onto the live stream even diminishes, that it just gives it an overall tone of gold. So I think this yarn will actually create a little bit more interest, which would be kind of nice. So that I cast on over the weekend, and I really have been enjoying just the mindlessness of it, because it's a very intuitive pattern. if anybody would like to join in with me and knit this with me, please go ahead. The shift cowl, I know there's a couple of people in the Ravelry group that would like to make it as well. So if you're interested in making in the Slack channel, if a few of you would like to join in with that, please don't hesitate to find some yarn and find some colors that you like. Even if you want to start yours now, that's totally fine. I would love to have you join in. So I did cast on another project this week. This is what I mean. I got my knitting mojo kind of back a little bit. Oh, thanks, Mari, she says, I love this yarn and the pattern. Thank you. I think it's a good match. Okay, so my last cast on, I'm really watching the time today because I have to go pick up Nora at school. And I have to leave a little bit early, so I need to be aware of sort of what time, because I want to get this edited and put up for everyone. Before we go on, I meant to mention this in the housekeeping section, and I totally forgot at the beginning of the show. Last time there was a live stream, people were a little bit confused about the show not being available after we did this live stream. I got quite a few messages throughout the afternoon. Where's the show? I can't access the show, blah, blah, blah. So the show becomes unavailable for a few hours while I edit it, and then I have to re-upload it. So patrons of the show get access to the podcast 2 days earlier than everybody else, but you don't get it immediately because I just need a quick chance to edit it. So the live stream is live now. You have access to it now, and then it will go unavailable for a couple of hours, and then it will be available this evening, usually between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. in the evening. It just depends on what's going on. So just for future, when there's a live stream, it goes down for a few hours, and then it'll be released later in the afternoon, but you guys will have access to it tonight. So just so that everybody's clear as mud on that. So this other project that I cast on, I talked about this last episode, and I'll just give you a quick reminder of what it looked like. This is the Sparkle Cardigan by Joji Locatelli. It was just released. It's knit with Cashlux Merino, Cashlux Fine, what's it called? It's a Sweet Georgia yarn. It's got a sparkle in it, and this is called the Sparkle Cardigan. So I decided to use my Disdarrow Ranch, and I'll switch the cameras back so you guys can see it. I had swatched last show, and I had shown you the swatches. So I did end up going with the 3.75 millimeter needles. I had swatched for 2 different cardigans, and I had settled on the Sparkle Cardigan. So this was my swatch, and actually it's been carried around in my bag for a week, and it still looks like it's not been touched. It looks absolutely, like, other than being wrinkled, it looks perfect. Which reminds me, can you guys remind me to mention something about my South Bay sweater, the purple one, that's the tunic dress that I talked about a couple of weeks ago? I wanted to mention something about what happened with it, because it's it almost got killed. So don't let me forget to mention it at the end of the show. Anyways, this is Disdarrow Ranch 80/20 Romney mohair. I am loving knitting on this. It's a really interesting construction. You start with the back, and then you knit all the way down. So you cast on up here along this edge here, all the way along to the end, and you work some short rows, and then you start the pattern. And in the pattern notes, she actually even says it's not going to look open and lacy until you block it. So don't expect it to immediately look like this. And even because of the way that the lace pattern is, like, I have to really hold it open to get the lace to really open. But you can see that the pattern is so pretty. Anyways, so you work those short rows, and then you work in pattern for a certain amount of inches, and then you start increasing for the underarm shaping, which is really kind of neat. So if you've never knit a sweater before, you sort of just have to take a leap of faith and work the increases, and sort of, just hope that you take the pattern at face value and just keep doing what she tells you to do. And then you break the yarn, you put your stitches on a holder, and actually if we hadn't have been away, I would have taken the cable off and I would have left the cable in the stitches, and I would have just put my needles on a different cable. But unfortunately, I didn't have any spare cables with us, so that was too bad. So you break the yarn, and then you pick up along your shoulders here. And I've knit one or two other sweaters that are like this. The construction's okay. It's a lot of breaking yarn and reattaching and stuff, and so you end up with a lot of ends that you have to weave in at the end. I could see some people, if it's yarn that you can't reattach, like commercial yarn, and you're actually cutting it, that you maybe wouldn't want to necessarily do that. Like you kind of want to make everything in one piece, and you don't want to be cutting yarn and whatnot. I'm not too concerned about this yarn. Like if this sweater doesn't work, I can just rip it out and splice it together and reattach it. But now I'm working on the right front, so you increase as you work down the right front. So you pick up stitches along here to the marker. There's a certain number of stitches that you're supposed to pick up, and then you start working down. And of course, you start working the lace repeat with the intention that once you get to the bottom of here, like once you work all the way down, it'll attach here eventually, and you'll be at the same row. So she gives you a whole bunch of like prompts to make a note of where you are in the pattern, so that you know when you attach it all together that you're going to be at the same, like you're going to be on row 5 or you're going to be on row 7 or whatever. So really interesting. Because of the tightness of the lace pattern, when I went to put it on the other day, like just to sort of try it, it's really small. And she says right in the pattern, like, it's going to stretch and it's going to be, just trust the process basically. So I'm trusting the process, because right now I'm like, this is really small. But I got gauge with stockinette, which is what she calls for in the pattern. And I'll just focus this a little bit better. I got gauge on my swatch, and I think, like she says, blocking will loosen it right up and it'll open up and blah blah blah. So I just have to trust the process, because I don't like it when I can't try on patterns and I can't be like really know for sure that the pattern's going to fit, because like I said, there's a lot of breaking yarn and attaching and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so Mari says, I haven't knit her patterns, but it sounds like she has good notes explaining where and how you should trust, which is reassuring. I'm curious to see how this goes. I'm very curious as well. And yeah, I've knit quite a few of Hohi's patterns now. I think this is my 3rd or 4th one. One of the reasons why I keep going back to her patterns is because they are so thorough. Her patterns are like page after page after page of information, and I find her very thorough, but not condescending. Like I find with some patterns they over explain, whereas with hers I find it's enough explanation for an experienced knitter, and you can still make modifications if you need to. So I definitely really appreciate the way that she does her patterns and the quality, because they're worth, knitting patterns are expensive. Like Canadian, I think this pattern cost like, I don't know if it's still on my Ravelry thing, but like, these, because of our Canadian dollar, this pattern costs like $11 or $12. So, to me, I really want it to be worthwhile, and I want it to have lots of value, and hopefully be something that I maybe even would knit again in the future. Yeah, it's $9 Canadian. Still, there's the PayPal exchange fee. So, and then, the money that I pay for my Ravelry subscription, because I pay $5 for Ravelry so that I can upload photos into the forums and stuff. So it's all that, like, take it all into consideration, right? It's important. I want to have really well written patterns. So I really love her stuff, and I'd highly recommend her patterns, especially for those who are beginning knitters transitioning into becoming intermediate knitters, because you really can't go wrong with her patterns. So I'll tell you really quickly about South Bay, and then I think we need to say goodbye because it's getting on in time. I'll just switch my cameras around. So on, I guess it was Wednesday last week, I went to weave in all the ends because I hadn't done that yet. And I went to wash it. And so I did my normal, like, washed it in lukewarm water with eucalyptus in the wash water. No suds. Put it in. It's not a super wash wool, but it is machine washable and machine dryable. Like there's I think there's acrylic in it. I can't remember. I didn't look. I need to pull out the tags, the ball band tags, because I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember what's in the yarn. But I know it's a machine washable, machine dry, or lay flat to dry kind of yarn. So anyways, long story short, I washed it normally. It wasn't felted or anything. It looked totally fine. Pulled it out of the water, towel dried it. So rolled it in towels, got all the excess water out. And then with sweaters like that, I usually throw them in our washing machine, and I throw them on the spin cycle, because you can do the spin cycle for anywhere from 6 minutes to 12 minutes, and it gives it a really good spin. It gets out all that extra water. It's been so hot here that I figured, just get it as dry as possible, and I'll lay it out on the front porch on my blocking mats to block to size. Well, best laid plans and all, the washing machine absolutely, no matter what I did, absolutely would not spin the sweater. Like, it just kept registering as it being too heavy. So I towel dried it again, got even more water out of it, threw it back in, still would not spin it. Like, it would go like up to about here in speed, but it would not go like, whipping around. It just kept saying it's too heavy, it's too heavy, it's too heavy. And like, honest to goodness, by now the sweater's like mostly dry because I've towel dried it so much. But it was really stretched out from being so wet. So I wanted to cinch it back down, and the spin cycle usually does that for me, and I don't have to put it in the dryer. Long story short, after trying like 7 or 8 times, it absolutely would not spin. So the sweater by then was so wet. Like, it was still wet enough that like if I laid it out, it would end up being like size extra, 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 extra large. So I decided to throw it in the dryer, and I was like, well, come what may, because right now I can't wear this thing. So I threw it in the dryer for 3 or 4 minutes. Nothing. It was still wet, like as wet as it had been. Tried that again. Nothing. By now it's Thursday, because I gave up on Wednesday. I just left it and just sort of laid it out, tried to cinch it up as much as I could to keep it from getting really bagged out, and just kind of left it and ignored it. It was equally wet in the morning when I came downstairs on Thursday morning, because it's been so mild and hot here that we haven't had our heater on at night. The house is just, there's nothing running at night. So same wetness. And then, so that afternoon I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put it in the dryer, see how it goes. Nothing. Put it in the dryer again, nothing. Did it again, nothing. And like, now I'm like at like 10 minutes in the dryer, 12 minutes in the dryer. I'm like, is this sweater possessed? Like, is there something wrong with this sweater that I cannot get this yarn dry? So, and it almost felt like water was going into it, because it wasn't really, but it felt like it was getting wetter and wetter. But the reality is it just wasn't getting dry. So on Friday, I finally just threw it into the gentle cycle on the dryer. So the gentle cycle, it has a sensor, and it will run until it's actually dry. So I was like, well, come what may. So I threw it in, figured I would check on it a couple times. And I think by then I was so frustrated that I just forgot about it, and we were leaving anyways. And so I just left it. Totally forgot about it until Sunday. So we're at the campground, and I was like, oh shoot, my sweater's in the dryer. Darn it. Hope it's okay. And the other weird thing about this whole thing is, during this whole process, so from the time that it came out of the water initially on Wednesday till Friday, and it didn't smell. I was getting really worried that it was going to start smelling a bit moldy and a bit mildewy, but it actually was fine. The yarn itself, this whole time, was like, it had like turned into like rope. Like, it was like this coarse, ropey, and I thought, I was like, is the fiber in the yarn felted? Like, what? Like, it wasn't the same. It didn't feel the same. It was almost like this, like, over twisted, ropey. It felt very strange. It felt like a fine grit sandpaper. So I was worried anyway. So by Friday I was like, screw it. I'm just putting it in the dryer. I got to get this thing dry. Nothing's working. I towel dried it again. It was still like a disaster. Anyways, I got home yesterday, pulled it out. It was still wet. So, and now it had been sitting over the weekend. Didn't smell. It was totally fine. I think it was probably because it was in sort of a sealed environment. It was okay. Anyways, long story short, I threw it in the dryer again on that delicate cycle, came out. It's like 85-90% dry now finally, and I laid it out to dry the rest of the way, but I'm expecting it to be, I think it's stretched out quite badly. It absolutely would not dry. It's still not dry this morning. I don't know what is in that yarn. Really, really strange. It's softened up again now that a lot of the water's out. It doesn't feel as like ropey and coarse like it did, but very strange. Very, very strange. So it's not superwash, which is really strange. And I think it's the acrylic in there. I'm not totally sure. So I'm going to pull out the ball band and I'll share with you guys next time what is in that yarn, but it's would not dry at all. Like no matter what I did, it would not dry. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So we'll see. It may end up being a gift for somebody, because I don't know if I measured the sweater and it looks like it's approximately to my measurements, but it's definitely bigger than it was when I finished. And I had done a gauge swatch. I had washed it the way that I was going to wash it when I finished it. Like I did everything, but the yarn completely changed when I washed it this time around. So I don't know if it was like a different yarn, like it was the same yarn that I had swatched with, but only one of the 5 balls, because like I didn't swatch with all 5 balls. So I don't know if there's something in some of the other yarns. I have no idea. Because the worst part of the sweater was actually the part from here to about here that was the worst in terms of like reacting and not getting dry. So I have no idea. If anybody maybe has any ideas or maybe would know, if you could pop into the Ravelry group and throw out your comments and ideas about maybe something that you've had a similar experience, I'd love to hear, because it's not like it hasn't been hot here. It should have dried, but it just absolutely would not let go of all that moisture. So it was almost like it was locked in there. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about some of the commercial yarns that you've worked with and washed that maybe haven't gone as smoothly as you thought that it would. Anyhow, that took a lot longer to tell you than I thought that it would, but it was so strange. And yeah, I just don't even know what to think. So I'll pull out the ball bands and I'll see if maybe there's a fiber in there that would act a bit strangely. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Becca. She popped into my project page to check. So the yarn was West Yorkshire Spinners Air, Valley Aran Wool, and nylon, 75-25. So theoretically, it's a 75-25 nylon wool. And yeah, but they're not drying. It's very strange. You're right, Mari. It's very strange. So, and it is a machine washable yarn. So very strange. Anyhow, I'm going to let you guys go. I hope you have a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend. The show will come out for patrons tonight, sometime between 5 and 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so it'll be inaccessible for a couple of hours here, and then it'll come out this evening. So that's sort of how it's always been. I think we just have a lot more patrons now, and people maybe weren't aware that that's sort of how that works while I edit. And then the show will be released on Thursday to everybody else, and there will be show notes on Thursday. So until then, I hope you guys have an awesome week. Enjoy all the sun if you're entering summer where you are, and happy spinning. Bye, everyone.